Max Kakis from Federal News Radio. I want to put Mr. Davis on the spot here a little bit. Your name's been bandied about as possible candidate for this job, Mr. Davis. Are you interested? And for the panel, if it's not Tom Davis, what kind of characteristics would you be looking for in someone who could pull off this job, given what Mr. Bamford has just described for us, and what kind of a person would be ideal for it?
You know, Max, I think if I'd wanted to stay in government, I would have stayed in Congress. I think I just need a hiatus at this point. I mean, you never say never on something like this. You want to, part of it is service with me. But I was 29 years in office, my best earning years. And as I said when I left, I took it's a sabbatical. It's not permanent. But at this point, I don't have any real interest in going back. I was lucky enough to leave Congress undefeated and unindicted. And sometimes it's good to leave on top.
When I talk about someone with name recognition, I'm not necessarily thinking about a technologist. Maybe a manager of technology, but not a technologist. And even if you do get someone, there are not many people within government that are noted in this particular area, well known, if you will, unless it might be a few folks in uniform. But you have to marry up a team with that person. And so if they're a name recognition force that can get entrees into boardrooms, into other parts of the cabinets, be taken seriously by Congress, you have to back that person up with a team that understands how to make things work in government. And I can't tell you the number of times that we've had the right person but not the right team working issues. And it's a combination. There's a pragmatic nature and understanding that you have to have about government. Understanding the difference between appropriations committees and authorization committees is hugely important when you're trying to get things done. Understanding how to be successful in the interagency process. And so it takes somebody that understands that top to bottom and how to work those things. And so I don't think it's necessarily the right, it's not only just the right person, you've got to surround that person with the right team. If, on the other hand, you pick someone who's got a lot of bureaucratic skills as being the top person, you need to surround or bolster that person with name recognition, other prominent support, and other, those kinds of things. So I think the correct question is how do you build the right team, not how do you find the right individual.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I don't really have a formula or a name in mind for who should do it. I just think it should be somebody that commands the president's respect and could get his attention when he needs to get it, and also can tell a head of NSA or four-star general, no, I don't think that's a good idea, and I don't think you should do it. So it should be somebody like that. Again, I think somebody that has to work with Congress a lot. That's why I've thought of somebody from Congress possibly, or somebody that just has a lot of stature that can command this issue. They don't have to know exactly how which electron goes which way or whatever, but they have to know policy and how to work that policy through an administration.
Dan Fowler from Congressional Quarterly. This is sort of a follow-up question on Max's question for Mr. Davis. There was a Time article that came out, I think, last week, which said that you were a leading candidate for this cyber coordinator or cyber czar position. So just to be clear at this point, that you're not a candidate for this position, is that?
I'm not a candidate for anything. I'm just trying to be a citizen. As I said, you never say never to help your country. But for this job to work, I mean, you'd better get some understandings up front if you're the cyber czar and you want to have any clout in this. And at this point, it's unclear to me what the position would even entail, how much authority you would have. Everybody likes to tackle problems. I've tackled tough problems. I did the District of Columbia when I took that committee, the least sought-after committee assignment in the House, and passed the Control Board Act. I took the campaign committee at a tough time when the party was so you always look, but for this, at this point, it's unclear. I am not seeking to get back into government. I like the job I have. I like being able to be a freelance commentator. I love speculation. It's always helpful for the branding. But you never say never. There's always a part of service, I think, in all of us at this point. But I'm doing very well right now without looking to do anything else.
Could I just ask one follow-up question on that? Have you been interviewed for the position?
You know what? I don't want to. That's a evasive question. I didn't understand it. The answer is I'm not seeking it at this point, and I don't know where they are along the lines of this one. So.
General Myros, Scott Willis from PBS Nova. You talked about familiar terms and unfamiliar paradigms, civilian versus military, domestic versus foreign. Is there also a shift there in terms of offensive versus defensive? And can you, in cyber warfare, there's a lot of offensive opportunity, I'm sure. And can you separate that offensive opportunity from the role of a cyber czar? And doesn't that really complicate the whole process of
Sure.
what they have?
I take a little bit different view than most folks on this. See, the terms offensive and defensive, I was a part of this, figuring out what those were. And those came from the military side of the house. And offensive implies there's an aggression or an objective to capture, and defensive implies that there's a resistance or a protection. And those were terms that were probably apropos when we started. But those are also, I think, shifting paradigms. I am one that very much believes that there's almost no such thing as offensive and defensive, because a lot of cyber activity can be interference without intent. It's what's your intent, and so things can be disruptive, things can become vulnerable, and all those kinds of things when the intent is not necessarily to seek and destroy or to shield and ward off. I think it's more important of, can you detect when something has happened, and what are you going to do about it if it produces unfavorable outcomes? And I think that framework is more constructive in the terms of cyber talk. There is cyber war. There are folks who intend to attack the United States or attack individuals. If they attack the United States, we tend to think of them that's war. If they're criminals and they're going after individuals to try and take money and things like that, we tend to think that. But the activities are the same. And when we were creating the terms offense and defense back in the late 90s and early 2000, we were having people saying, well, if you put up a shield that repelled, then that was an offensive act. And we actually, we debated that. I mean, that was a debate. And so it was like every single element of, if you fixed a vulnerability, that could be an offensive act because that vulnerability reached out beyond your network. And so I think one of the natural things that's going to happen in this cyber discussion over the next couple of years, we're going to look at offensive and defensive differently, and it's going to be desirable, undesirable outcomes, things that you do that affect others in cyberspace, things that they do that affect you. And the thing that intent is going to be the most in cyberspace is that those who have an intent to do something that's not constructive are going to try and be as stealthy as possible. So stealth will be one of those things that will replace the idea of offense and defense.